Easter brunch at Aunt Diane's house was always an elaborate production. Her suburban colonial sparkled with spring decorations, pastel flowers in crystal vases, a ham centerpiece that probably cost $200, designer place settings for 18 family members. She loved hosting these gatherings, loved being the matriarch who brought everyone together. She especially loved reminding everyone of her success. I arrived in my 7-year-old Toyota Corolla, parking on the street behind my cousin Tyler's Range Rover. My floral dress was from Target's spring collection. Pretty enough, affordable, and exactly the kind of thing that made my family assume I was struggling. Nicole. Aunt Diane greeted me at the door, her smile tightening as she took in my appearance. How's the little apartment in Riverside? It's good, Aunt Diane. Thanks for having me. Of course, dear. Family is family. She lowered her voice. Though I do wish you'd let us help you find something better. That neighborhood has gotten so questionable. I like Riverside. Well, you're young. You don't understand property values yet. She ushered me inside. Come say hello to everyone. Tyler just bought another investment property, his third this year. Inside, the family had gathered in their usual hierarchies. Uncle Paul discussing stock portfolios with my father. Tyler holding court about real estate investments. My mother trapped in conversation with Diane about European vacation plans. My younger sister Emma spotted me and waved sympathetically. At 28, she was the only family member who didn't treat me like a charity case. Nicole. Tyler appeared, all smiles and expensive cologne. Still renting that studio in Riverside? I could help you find something to buy. First-time buyer programs, get you building equity instead of throwing money away on rent. I'm fine, Tyler. Thanks. Are you though? Aunt Diane rejoined the conversation. You're 34, unmarried, renting in a questionable area. Don't you want stability? Security? I have both actually. Do you? Working freelance for that. What do you call it? Property consulting. He said it like I'd claimed to be a fortune teller. That's not real stability, dear. Tyler jumped in. I keep telling you, Nicole, real estate is where the money is. I've got 3 rental properties now, pulling in almost $6,000 a month in passive income. That's how you build wealth. 3 properties? That's impressive, Tyler. I kept my voice neutral. It's all about thinking big, taking risks, not settling for some tiny apartment because you're afraid to commit. He gestured around Diane's house. Look at Mom and Uncle Paul. They own this place outright plus that investment condo downtown. That's smart money management. Aunt Diane beamed. We've always believed in property ownership. It's how you build generational wealth. I sipped my mimosa and said nothing. Brunch was served. Quiche and smoked salmon, fresh fruit and pastries, bottomless mimosas. The conversation flowed around me, family members sharing updates on careers and achievements. Tyler talked about his latest rental property acquisition. My cousin Sarah discussed her promotion to senior manager. Even Emma, bless her, shared news about her graphic design business landing a major client. When the conversation turned to me, the questions were perfunctory, tinged with pity. Still doing that property consulting work? Uncle Paul asked. Yes. Keeping busy. Any interesting projects? A few things in development. Well, good for you. Staying active. He turned to Tyler. Now, about that downtown condo opportunity you mentioned. After brunch, we moved to the living room for coffee and dessert. That's when Aunt Diane decided to make her announcement. She tapped her coffee cup with a spoon, drawing everyone's attention. I want to share some news that affects our family, she began, her voice taking on that important tone she used for pronouncements. Particularly our dear Nicole. My stomach tightened. As you all know, Paul and I have been building our real estate portfolio. We believe in property ownership as a path to security and wealth. She smiled at me and it wasn't kind. Which is why we've been concerned about Nicole's living situation. Diane, my mother started. No, Melissa, this needs to be said. Nicole has been renting that little studio in Riverside for years. Throwing away money on rent when she could be building equity. Well, Paul and I have decided to help. Uncle Paul nodded. We've purchased the building Nicole lives in. Closed on it 2 weeks ago. It's an investment property for us, but it also gives us an opportunity to help family. The room went quiet. We're going to evict the current tenants, including Nicole, and renovate the units. Diane continued. Turn them into luxury apartments we can rent for proper market rate. Nicole, you have 30 days to vacate our investment property. I set down my coffee cup carefully. We've already contacted a moving company that can help you, Diane added. Very affordable rates. We'll even pay for the first hour of labor. Consider it our Easter gift. Tyler was nodding approvingly. Smart move, Mom. That building has great bones. Once you renovate, you can probably get $1,500 per unit instead of the current $800. Exactly, Uncle Paul agreed. The neighborhood is gentrifying. Perfect timing to upgrade and capitalize. My mother looked stricken. Diane, you're evicting your own niece? We're helping her, Melissa. This will force Nicole to finally buy something instead of wasting money on rent. Sometimes tough love is the kindest approach. Where is she supposed to go? Emma demanded. There are plenty of apartments available. Nicole is a grown woman, she can figure it out. Diane turned to me with that practiced sympathy. Dear, I know this seems harsh, but you'll thank us eventually. This is the push you need to get serious about your financial future. I pulled out my phone and opened my property management app. The one connected to Riverside Property Group, the LLC I'd created 9 years ago specifically for real estate investments. Aunt Diane, I said calmly, what's the address of the building you purchased? Why does that matter? Humor me. She exchanged glances with Uncle Paul. 742 Riverside Avenue. We closed 2 weeks ago for $375,000. Cash purchase. I navigated to my property database. Found the building at 742 Riverside Avenue. Opened the ownership records. That's interesting, I said quietly. Because according to county records, 742 Riverside Avenue is owned by Riverside Property Group, LLC. Has been since 2016. I'm looking at the deed right now. Tyler grabbed my phone. That's impossible. My parents just bought that building. Your parents bought 752 Riverside Avenue, I corrected. Different building. Same street. The room went silent. But the realtor said, Uncle Paul pulled out his phone, scrolling frantically through emails. His face went white. Oh God. It is 752. So you didn't buy Nicole's building? My mother asked. No, we bought the building next door. Diane was looking at me strangely now. But how do you have access to property records for? Because I own 742 Riverside Avenue. I pulled up the full ownership documentation. I purchased it in 2016 for $290,000. 12 units, all occupied, generating about $11,000 in monthly rental income. Tyler's mouth fell open. I also own 738 Riverside Avenue, I continued, pulling up more records. That's a 16-unit building I acquired in 2018. And 721 Riverside Avenue, 8 units, purchased in 2020. Plus properties on 4th Street, Maple Avenue and Harbor Boulevard. How many properties? My father asked quietly. I own 23 residential buildings in the Riverside and downtown areas. Total portfolio value is approximately $14.6 million. Annual rental income last year was just over $1.2 million. Aunt Diane had gone completely pale. The property consulting I do? I looked around the room. I consult on my own properties. Property management, tenant relations, renovation planning. That's my full-time job, managing my real estate portfolio. But you drive a Toyota, Tyler stammered. You live in a studio apartment. I drive a paid-off car with excellent gas mileage. And I live in a studio because it's part of my property portfolio and I like being on-site to handle tenant issues quickly. I pulled up another screen. The studio I live in. I designated it as owner-occupied in my LLC. I don't pay myself rent. $14 million, Uncle Paul whispered. In property value, yes. My equity position is about $9.3 million after mortgages. Though I've been paying those down aggressively. Emma started laughing. Oh my God. This is perfect. What about the eviction notice? My mother asked. I turned to Aunt Diane. You said you're evicting tenants from your building at 752 Riverside? She nodded mutely. That building has 18 units. You purchased it for $375,000, which means you probably got a deal because it needs work. I pulled up the property records for 752. Looking at the previous owner, Interesting. That was a distressed sale. The building has significant deferred maintenance, plumbing issues, electrical problems, foundation concerns. The inspector mentioned some repairs needed, Uncle Paul admitted. Some repairs. That building needs about $200,000 in renovations to be safely habitable at luxury rates. You'll need to evict all tenants, which will take months and probably involve legal battles. Then you'll need permits, contractors, financing for the renovation costs. Tyler was scrolling through his phone frantically. Mom, Dad, why didn't you tell me about this purchase? I could have. We wanted to surprise the family, Diane said weakly. You surprised us all right. I looked at my aunt. Here's what's actually happening with your building. The tenants at 752 Riverside have been organized by a tenant advocacy group. They're fighting the evictions. You're looking at a legal battle that could last a year. How do you know that? Uncle Paul demanded. Because I know the neighborhood. I know the advocacy groups. I know which buildings are good investments and which are money pits. I met his eyes. 752 Riverside is a money pit. The previous owner couldn't afford the repairs and sold at a loss. You overpaid by about $75,000. His face went from white to red. As for the eviction notice I received, I said, turning back to Diane, I didn't receive one. You don't own my building. You can't evict me from property I own. But you said, Diane started. I said you were evicting current tenants. I am a current tenant at 742 Riverside. I'm just also the landlord. I pulled up my email. Though interestingly, I did send an eviction notice this week. To the tenant in Unit 4B at 721 Riverside Avenue. Tyler's eyes went wide. That's my rental property. I live in 4B. You rent 4B. From me. You've been my tenant for 2 years, Tyler. I showed him the lease. Riverside Property Group owns that building. You pay me $950 a month. That's impossible. My landlord is some property management company. Riverside Property Management. That's my company. I manage my own properties. I pulled up his rental history. You've been a decent tenant, actually. Rent always on time, no complaints. But you violated the lease terms last month. How? You subleased the spare bedroom on Airbnb without permission. That's grounds for eviction. His face went completely white. The eviction notice went out Tuesday, I continued. You have 30 days to vacate my investment property. The silence in the room was absolute. You're evicting your own cousin? Diane's voice was shrill. I'm enforcing my lease terms. Just like you planned to evict me, except I actually have the legal authority to do it. Nicole, please, Tyler started. Here's what's going to happen, I said, closing my phone. Tyler, you can stay in 4B if you agree to updated lease terms. No subletting, no exceptions. And your rent is increasing to market rate, $1,200 per month. That's a 25% increase. That's the current rate for comparable units in that neighborhood. I've been undercharging you because you're family. He sank into his chair. As for Aunt Diane and Uncle Paul, I continued, you're welcome to proceed with your renovation plans for 752 Riverside. But you should know that the tenant advocacy group is very effective. The repairs will cost more than you budgeted, and the neighborhood rental market is about to shift. Shift how? Uncle Paul asked nervously. I'm renovating 3 of my buildings this year and upgrading to compete in the luxury market. That will put downward pressure on surrounding properties. Your units at 752 won't command the premium rates you're expecting. Diane looked like she might cry. You're sabotaging our investment? I'm managing my portfolio strategically. That's what real estate investors do. I softened slightly. But I'm not cruel. If you want guidance on the renovation, I'm happy to share my contractor recommendations and help you navigate the permit process. Family discount on consulting fees. You'd help us. Uncle Paul sounded shocked. Your family. You made a bad investment because you didn't do proper due diligence. I can help you minimize the damage. I looked at Diane. But first, you need to apologize for trying to evict me from property you didn't own and for spending years assuming I was failing just because I live modestly. Diane's perfect composure crumbled. Nicole, I'm so sorry. Thought I was helping. I thought you needed guidance. You thought I was beneath you. That's different from wanting to help. You're right. I've been awful. Tears streaked her makeup. Can you forgive me? Eventually. Right now, I need you to understand that success doesn't always look like Range Rovers and designer handbags. Sometimes it looks like a paid-off Toyota and a property portfolio worth $14 million. Emma was openly grinning now. This is the best Easter ever. My father spoke up. Nicole, why didn't you tell us? About the properties, the success, all of it. Would you have believed me? Or would you have assumed I was exaggerating like you always do when I try to talk about my work? He looked ashamed. We should have asked more questions. Actually listened. Yes, you should have. I stood up. Thank you for brunch, Aunt Diane. It was enlightening. You're leaving? My mother asked. I have a property inspection at 3. One of my 4th Street buildings needs a new roof. Can I come? Emma asked eagerly. I'd love to see how you run your business. I smiled. Sure. I'll show you everything. As we walked to my modest Toyota, Emma laughed. The look on Tyler's face when you told him you were his landlord, priceless. He's been bragging about his 3 rental properties for months. He didn't realize one of them was mine. Are you really going to evict him? No. He's actually a good tenant when he follows the rules. But he needed to understand there are consequences. My phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Paul. Asterisk, can we talk tomorrow? About renovation consulting? We're in over our heads. Asterisk. I replied. Asterisk, Tuesday at 2 p.m. My office. We'll discuss your options. Asterisk. Emma read over my shoulder. You have an office? Suite 400 at the Riverside Commerce Building. I own that too. Bought it in 2019. I grinned. Want to see it? Absolutely. As we drove past the buildings I owned, past the properties I'd carefully acquired and managed, I thought about family and assumptions and the sweet satisfaction of proving yourself on your own terms. My aunt had tried to evict me from property she didn't own. Instead, she discovered I was her nephew's landlord and a real estate investor who'd built something she could only dream of. And honestly, the eviction notice Tyler received was just the beginning of his education. Some lessons are best learned through experience.